go down. Did you get that?
Yeah, I got the how.
Okay, that's how we used to dive.
Was it very loud?
I used to sleep with that thing about 2 foot from my ears.
So
I never heard it.
you never heard it? How often did it go off?
I beg your pardon?
How often did you have to dive?
Well, it depended. Sometimes you dive 30 times a day. It depended on where you were. We were off the coast of China one time, and we were doing lifeguard duty. And what happened was, when we spotted a plane, if a plane got within 7.5 miles of the boat, we dove. We didn't care if it was American, Chinese, Japanese, whatever. We dove. And we made what they called a quick dive. In World War II and after, there was no such thing as a crash dive. That was for dramatic purposes. We used to make a quick dive. And when we spotted a plane or a plane got within 7.5 miles, we dove regardless of what it was. And within 30 seconds, we were underwater. And that included getting 6 people off the bridge, flooding down, closing one hatch, and going down. So that's why it was loud. But I never heard it. I never heard it.
A sound sleeper?
I don't know why. I think you get used to anything. I think you get used to anything, regardless of what it is. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, if I could get some background information,
Okay.
if you could tell me what your life was like before you entered the service, where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
What did your parents do?
What did my parents do?
Yes.
My mother was home, and my father was a general contractor.
So, did the depression affect you at all?
I beg your pardon?
Did the depression affect you at all?
Oh, absolutely. It affected everybody.
In what way?
Well, at one time, my father was an immigrant. He came over when I was about 17. And he became a contractor, made a lot of money. Owned a lot of real estate and a lot of other things. And when the Depression hit, he lost everything like everybody else. He was no different. So we moved down, we lost the house we were living in. He had another house in the Greenpoint section, and we moved there. And that was it. Then later on, we moved back to Flatlands.
After things picked up again?
No. The things didn't pick up until World War II, after World War II. World War II was a salvation for a lot of countries as far as the Depression went.
Did you have any siblings?
I beg your pardon?
Did you have any siblings?
Do I have? Yeah, I had a brother and a sister.
Okay. Did they serve?
My brother was in the Korean War, but he was in Germany.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting the phone's ringing for a reason. Can you hold on 1 second? I'm sorry.
What's that?
Can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Hello? Hello? Yeah, it was ringing. I don't know why. But hold on a second. Yeah, sorry about that.
It's all right.
How about high school? Where did you go to high school, and did you play any sports?
Technical high school, and dropped out and joined the Navy. After the war, I got my equivalency while I was in the service, and then after the war, I went to Long Island University and graduated from there.
Mr. Fatale, I'm sorry, I just got paged. Can you hold on 1 second? I'm really sorry about this. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah.
Hello? Yes. 2:30's not really. I'm on the desk from 3 to 5. How about Friday? Well, Thursday I have on. Yeah, Thursday should work. Is it in the morning, right? Not really. I can. You know what? Can I call you back? All right. Yeah. All right, thanks. Bye. Hello? 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 I'm really sorry about that. All right. And I forgot to turn off the tape recorder when I was doing it. So, why did you join the Navy?
Why?
Yes.
I think it was the thing to do in those days. I don't know.
When did you join? After Pearl Harbor?
Oh, yeah.
It was after Pearl Harbor?
Harbor, I was only, 15.
Oh, so you lied about your age?
No, I didn't go in until 43.
Yeah. All right. And why did you pick the Navy?
I don't know. I lived by the water. I guess maybe that was it. I don't know.
And do you recall your first days in service?
My first day?
Yes.
Yeah.
How did it go?
Well, they put us on a train, and we made a trip to Great Lakes Naval Training Station. So overnight we were on a train. Not very comfortable, but that's what it was.
And how did you choose the submarine? Or did they choose you?
No. I volunteered when I was involved. I don't recall if they asked or whether I volunteered. Well, I know I volunteered. You had to volunteer in those days. But I asked to go to the submarine service, and I got in.
Were there any special testing? Or
No, I think the main thing was you had to have a weak mind and a strong back.
a weak mind and a strong mind?
Why
the weak mind?
Huh?
Why the weak mind?
No. Well, I've done trips in the new boats, both the ballistic missile boats and the attack boats. And when you see the equipment these kids have, and how sophisticated they are, you got to realize, I don't know whether we could have done it. These kids are really brilliant that they got today. So, I don't know. I always tell everybody, they say, what, you get in the boats? I said, I had a strong back and a weak mind.
Well, could you give some specifics about your basic training experiences?
Yeah, we used to do more work trying to get out of calisthenics than if we had stayed there and done any calisthenics. We used to sneak out the back door and run like hell so they wouldn't catch us. It was stupid, but that was it.
So, how about learning the job of being a submariner?
I beg your pardon?
How about learning the job of being a submariner?
Well, I went to torpedo school at Great Lakes, and then from there we went to submarine school in New London. And that was an experience all in itself, at submarine school. They had a chief, Charlie Spritz, and they used to call it Spritz's Navy, who ran that place with an iron hand. In the hierarchy of things, there was God, Charlie Spritz, and then the captain of the base.
I bet you Charlie wanted to be number one.
Yeah, he was. When you stop to think of it, he did an astronomical job. He was really, really great. But boy, everybody feared him. And he ran, as I say, he ran that place with an iron hand. And if you talk to any submariner in World War II, the first thing they'll tell you about is Spritz's Navy.
So was he the toughest part of the submarine school?
No. He had a job to do. He had to keep everybody in line, make sure that things went well, and that's what he did. He did a great job. When you look back, when you were there at the time, he was a real pain in the ears.
But he was probably proud of his job.
Great. Yeah, as I say, if you talk to anybody in World War II that went to submarine school, the first thing they'll tell you about is Charlie Spritz.
So he was responsible for training just about every submariner?
Well, no, he ran the barracks, the mess halls. He ran everything. He had nothing to do with actual training at the school, because you had various different departments there. And but he was I guess the administrator.
All right, man. So, were you in the Pacific Theater?
Yes.
Could you have a little bit of detail about that? Were you you got there 40? You started school in 43. When did you get to the Pacific?
I didn't get in the Navy until late 43. I didn't get to the Pacific until 45.
45.
Yeah.
So, what part? When in 1945?
I beg your pardon?
When in 1945?
Well, I went into Muscalonge in March of 45.
Did you serve in any of the invasions of any of the islands?
Well, we went from Mare Island. I picked the boat up at Mare Island, then we went to Hawaii, and there we trained, and all the way on the way out to there we trained, and then we went to Hawaii. We picked up supplies, fuel, whatever, and then from there we went to Midway, where we topped off. When they say top off, that means all the fuel you used in between and food, you replenished. That's topping off. And then from there we went to Formosa. We didn't land in Formosa, but we had lifeguard duty between Formosa and China. And we went back and forth every day looking for downed pilots. Now, it may sound stupid, but the submarines picked up over 500 pilots during World War II, including George Bush. Not the current George, but the father.
Right.
Finback picked him up.
Did your ship pick up any?
No, we never found any pilots. But that was our job. We never sighted a ship. We never found a pilot. I don't know how many days we did, 30 days, 40 days, whatever it was, just going back and forth looking for them.
And what was your specific job?
Well, in the submarine, you carry a load of torpedoes, and they have to be, every week we used to check them, make sure the air was there and everything else. But in between, I did a little bit of everything. Clean up, look out, whatever had to be done, we did. And then you had to qualify to earn your dolphins.
And how did you qualify?
Well, you go from compartment to compartment and learn what goes on in that compartment. In other words, if you go back to the engine rooms, you had to learn how to start the engines, how to stop the engines. If you went back to the electrical department, on a submarine in those days, you didn't have direct drive. You had the engines that went to generators, that turned over motors, and the motors turned over the screws. And the electricians were the ones that controlled the speed of the boat. So when the engineers started the boat, or started the engines, they turned over control to the electricians. So you used to go back to the maneuvering room, and in the maneuvering room you had to learn how to move the boat. Different speeds, whatever that had to be done.
And how big was the crew?
Well, during the war, they usually ran between 90 and 100.
How many officers and how many enlisted?
I would say 8 to 10 officers, and the rest were enlisted.
What class submarine was it?
What type?
Yes.
It was a fleet type, the Gato type. They were 311 foot long. They carried 10 torpedo tubes, 24 torpedoes. I forgot how much fuel they carried. They used to go by tonnage. And they had a crew. They displaced about 1,500 tons on the surface, and I think about 2,500 submerged.
So what was your most memorable experience?
I think about it.
What was your most memorable experience?
During World War II?
Yes.
Good one. Well, the next one we were up in the Coral Islands, and up there was always foggy, and this was in August. It was always foggy, and it was cold. and you were always wet and damp. Well, anyway, we ran into some Japanese sea trucks, and we couldn't see them, and we couldn't see them. They couldn't see us. And we were firing at each other, and we had 3 wounded and 1 kid killed in a surface action. And while we were there, I think it was August 18th or 17th, we got word that the war was over. The war had ended, the Japanese had surrendered. And from there, along with 12 other boats, we gathered outside of the, I guess the river channel, whatever it is, at the Tokyo Bay, and we went in for the surrender. And we were anchored, we could see the Missouri, and there were 12 boats tied up to the tender, and we went in on the first, they signed on the second, and we left on the third. I guess that was the most memorable.
So you were there at the surrender?
Yes.
Very interesting. And the casualties, was that happened on August 18th? That was after the war ended?
No, that was before.
Before the war.
That was before. I think it was August 8th that...
August 8th. Okay. Yeah. Were you awarded any medals or citations, individually and the ship?
No, we didn't get any. Nobody got medals. Except the Purple Heart, the guy that killed got a Purple Heart. The other 3 got a Purple Heart for being wounded.
And how did you stay in touch with your family while you were gone?
I beg your pardon?
Did you stay in touch with your family while you were gone?
Well, when you came in, you could write a letter, but that was it. That was censored. When you could tell them that you were feeling good, that was about it.
Was there mail waiting for you when you got back?
Yeah, you got mail when it was forwarded. They knew where you were going to go.
And how about the logistics of the ship? How was the food? How cramped was it? Did you have much privacy?
Well, no, you had absolutely no privacy. You got to understand that we were the equivalent of a sewer tube. I guess, excluding the tanks and the torpedo tubes on either end, we were probably about 270 foot long in between. Now, everything was closed. All the hatches were closed except the conning tower hatch when you were running on the surface. You had people sleeping in the forward torpedo room. You had people, they had a bunk room. And then you had people sleeping in the after torpedo room. Now, in the forward torpedo, we had 6, 10, 14. We had 16 people sleeping in the forward torpedo room. They utilized all the space they could, including underneath the torpedo loading hatch. There were 2 bunks side by side. They used to call that the bridal suite. And then there were some hot bunkers. People, junior didn't get a bunk to sleep in. Whenever somebody got up, they could get in.
Well, how was the routine on ship? Did you work 8 off 4, or?
Well, you were on watch 4 hours, and then you were off for 8 hours. Of course, when there was work to be done, like I got to overhaul the torpedoes or check the torpedoes, you weren't off, you worked. And anybody that was sleeping in the torpedo room had to get up, because you had to pull the skids out. So no, there was no privacy. The food, when you left port, it was good. But after you're at sea, about 35, 40 days, you're running out. You got rotten eggs. The butter was moldy. You had no milk. And the sanitation conditions were horrendous in those days because you had 2 evaporators and they could make 1,000 gallons of water a day. And the batteries took up a good portion of that water. So we used to be allotted, the boat was allotted 400 gallons of water for washing, cooking, brushing your teeth, and whatever else. No showers. The way we took a shower was once a week. You got a galvanized bucket. You went back in number 1 engine. You got the condensating water from the air conditioning. and with that bucket you went into the shower and you washed down. So we all stunk.
Sounds pleasant.
I beg your pardon?
Sounds pleasant.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know any better.
No.
That's the way things were, and that's the way it was. And not only that, you sunk a diesel fuel, and then, you talk about secondhand smoke. Now, we had a crew of 100, probably, I would say 80, at least 80% of the people smoked. So we were constantly, and I mean constantly, 24 hours a day, inhaling smoke, because it had nowhere to go.
I guess there was no smoking bans yet.
I beg your pardon?
There was no smoking ban.
Yeah. No, we smoked all the time. And you went back to the cruise mess, there were 4 tables. The cruise mess was, in today's houses, probably the size of the walk-in closet in the master suite. Okay, and when you were off watch, you were back there playing cribbage, pinochle, poker, AC-doocy, whatever. Now, you probably had 4 people at each table, and you had all the kibitzers standing up watching, and everybody was smoking. So in this little closet, everybody was smoking, and everybody was inhaling the secondhand smoke. So I have to laugh when they want to ban it smoking on the beaches because of secondhand smokes, and on the boardwalks and in the cadaverous casinos. People are going to get, that's all nonsense.
Yeah.
As I say, I probably inhaled more smoke in 24 hours when I was asleep than most people do in a lifetime today. But we didn't know any better.
Do you keep in touch with any of the many
I belong to the submarine veterans of World War II, and we have regional meetings, state meetings, national meetings, and then there's an internet. Well, no, the group that I served with in the boat, no, because there's only about a few left, and so I don't really correspond with any. But submarine veterans as such that served in World War II, yes.
What do you think of the men that you served with, officers and enlisted?
I beg your pardon?
What do you think of the men that you served with, both officers and enlisted?
Now or then?
Then and now.
Well, it's a big difference. During World War II, you were all buddies. Now they probably have the care system in India would look very, very mild compared to the care system they have in the armed forces between officer and enlisted. They can die together, but they can't drink a beer together. That's the law. Down in Virginia Beach, they have an officer's beach and they have an enlisted man's beach. If you go on a base, everything is segregated. Housing, everything you can think of is segregated. Even the children, their ID cards have to have their father's rate on it, so when the shore patrol or MP picks up a kid and sees it's an officer's kid, he don't have to chastise him. That's why I got out of the service, because they started going back to that system. See, after the war, everybody was still buddy-buddy. We were down in Panama. We had a ball with the officers. They used to come over to the house. They used to drink together. We had parties together. That's all forbidden now.
So when did you get out?
I got out in 49. Did 6 and got out. Then I was going to school and I got called back for Korea in June of 50. I think in June of 50. I got called back and got out in September of 51. Something like that.
So what did you do during Korea?
What did I do? I went up to New London, and they told me I was hard of hearing, and they had some sort of assistant there. They had a guarantee that I could. Well, they told me I was going to stay there for 12 weeks. That once a week I used to go in and get radium treatments. I used to go to the medical lab, and I used to lay on a bed on a gurney or whatever, and I used to put 2 radium tubes in my nose. And this was supposed to cure your deafness. But this was an experimental thing. I don't know if you saw it in the paper. When they started this, they didn't keep any records. They're just the names of the people. And they had the records hidden behind a filing cabinet. And what happened was they renovated, they found this list. And then a big stink brewed, and I came after this list. But anyway, Joe Lieberman, who was running for president, or was running for president, he had a big study on it. I got all the papers here on it. And that was it. But
so,
anyway, the armed forces are very segregated now, and there's no more camaraderie, or what the hell ever they call it, between officers and men. They all go their separate way.
So, well, do you recall the day your service ended?
I think about it.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yeah.
How did that go? What were your feelings?
It was fantastic. No, I got out and we were up in New London in the Tusk, and there was another friend of mine, a kid I met on the boat. He had his master's degree in library science, and we both taught Peterman. And we used to read all the directives that came in. They used to call them all names. And well, on this boat, on the Tusk anyway, the exec was McDonald, Mr. McDonald, and the captain was Art Warner, and they didn't get along. And this McDonald used to come back there after the torpedo room and sit down back there and talk to us. And we kept breaking the shoes that we wanted to get out. He says, nope. And then finally we read an all there, because then the boat was going up on maneuvers up to the North Atlantic. And there was an old there that came out. We didn't know when our discharge date was. And we had to be in the separation center 7 days before our time. So this McDonald came back there, sat down, and we were talking. And we told him we didn't want to go up north. And he gave us a couple of cuss words and says, you go on. And we told him about the old man. So the next day, he had us up in the separation center. You got to understand, this was beginning. This Anderson, he had a job at Kansas Wesleyan waiting for him as the librarian. And I wanted to start the September semester at Long Island University. And they wouldn't let us out. But after we taught McDonald, he told the yeoman to get rid of us. And Andy got his job, and I started my semester at LIU.
And you did get to finish there because of Korea. Did you go back after Korea?
To the surface?
No, to Long Island.
Oh, yeah.
Did you finish?
Got out? Yeah, I graduated from Long Island University.
What did you go for?
Well, my major was accounting, business.
And was your education supported by the GI Bill?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was $10 a credit. Can you believe that, $10 a credit?
Not really.
$170 a semester. You had to take 17 credits, $170. That pays about what? About
1/10 of a credit today, yeah. So, did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
I think it was.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Not particularly, no. You got to understand that during World War II, we were attacked. So everybody was gung-ho to go get the Japs. Unlike today, it's an entirely different experience. You know, it's like you wouldn't think of punching somebody in the nose, but if somebody come over and punched you, you'd certainly think about getting back at them.
Absolutely. That's about the last question, but is there anything that you would like to add that we have not covered in the interview?
I didn't hear.
Is there anything you would like to add that we have not covered in the interview?
Well, yeah, you didn't ask me what we did. You know, the submarine service was probably the largest factor for the winning of the war in the Pacific. Now, we were 1.6% of the whole Navy, right?
Right.
We had the biggest casualties percentage-wise of any other branch. They sank 5,631,117 tons of shipping, or 1,392 ships altogether. 1,178 merchantmen, 214 naval ships, right? They picked up over 500 pilots. You got to realize that Japan was an island, and everywhere they went was an island, and they had to get supplies. Submarines made sure that they didn't get those supplies. So that was a big, big factor in the winning of World War II. And then when they came to the point where something was positively, absolutely could not be done in any manner, shape, or form, the submarines did it. They picked up 25 million tons of gold in the Philippines. They evacuated nuns. They landed commandos. They picked up commandos. They brought in ammunition, guerrillas, nurses, you name it, they did it. Surface ships couldn't do it. Neither could the Air Force do it. So when you talk about the war in the Pacific, and the reason the Japanese lost, it was the submarine force. Not taking anything away from Marines, but we made sure that they didn't get the supplies that they needed. And that was it.
You know, a member of the German General Staff was asked why the Japanese lost the war, and one of his top priorities, if he did credit the submarine force, other than underestimating the United States, the Japanese did not give credit to the submarine force.
No, that was their big mistake. When they went into Pearl Harbor, they went after the battleships. They left the submarines alone. No, I had very little part in this. However, the guys that were out there, they really, really did an outstanding job. And I think if Japan was able to get their supplies into these islands and, you know, personnel and whatever they needed, there would have been a lot longer war. But when you figure at the end of the war, Japan, I don't even think they had enough gas to get one plane off the ground. And all because it's an island, and an island depends on supplies, and they weren't getting them.
All right, well, I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
So if you have...
I'm glad you called.
All right, I want to thank you for your time.
All right.
And also for your service.
Okay. Whenever you think anything we want to know sometime, give me a call.
All right, I will. Thanks.
Okay?
All right. Yeah, have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.